Security Breach Ruin. The DLC expansion to Security Breach has had very mixed opinions within the community involving several numerous factors. While Security Breach offered a fresh take on the franchise by introducing a large open world environment and more dynamic gameplay, many fans found it underwhelming due to its technical issues and bugs, its inconsistent story, and its lack of depth in its horror elements. While in my opinion, Ruin provides a more cohesive experience, enhancing the atmosphere, gameplay, and storytelling, and solidifying its position as the superior entry. And in today's video, I'll be explaining why Ruin is superior over Security Breach. So to start it off, I'm gonna start with the downsides to Ruin, so I'm not just glazing it the entire video. Unlike Security Breach, which was completely free roam, Ruin pretty much gave us a set path that we had to follow, and we didn't even get to see half the Pizzaplex, which is actually depressing, I'm not gonna lie. Because I think we all would have loved to see this area all broken down and destroyed in Ruin. Now, the second downside to Ruin is the child nodes. The child nodes are really the only task you do throughout the entire game, and they get so repetitive that eventually they just suck and aren't fun. Now before I start explaining how Ruin is better than Security Breach, let's briefly recap some of the most important parts of the game, starting off with Cassie's search for Gregory. The main protagonist in Ruin is Cassie, who is a friend of Gregory, and she receives a message from quote-unquote Gregory, who is trapped and calls for her help. Cassie then sneaks into the remains of the Pizzaplex, which has fallen into disrepair after the events of Security Breach, and she later finds out that Gregory was not Gregory. Next is the ruined Pizzaplex. The Pizzaplex is now in a state of decay, showing the aftermath of what happened during Gregory's escape in the main game. This gives us a more eerie and dangerous environment compared to the original game, with broken down animatronics and a darker atmosphere. The Mimic. The Ruin DLC involves the introduction of the Mimic, apart from the books of course, which imitated Gregory's voice to lure Cassie down into the Pizzaplex. And we now know it even played a part back all the way in Fall Fest. The Vany Mask. Cassie finds a special mask that allows her to interact with an AR version of the Pizzaplex. This AR interface reveals hidden pathways, puzzles, and dangers. The mask adds an extra layer of horror and mystery as it reveals secrets about the Pizzaplex. Roxy and other animatronics. Cassie encounters the same animatronics throughout the story. These animatronics are in a far more deteriorated and dangerous state compared to the main game. Roxy in particular has a key moment where she retains some sentience and seems to recognize Cassie, even calling her friend and remembering her birthday, which added a ton of emotion to their interactions. However, most animatronics remain hostile, except for Roxy of course, because she remembers Cassie. The endings. The ending of Ruin depends on the choices made by the player. In one possible ending, Cassie is betrayed and left trapped in the Pizzaplex. This ending casts doubt on Gregory's true intentions, as he may be manipulating events for his own survival. One shows Gregory and Helpy sitting on a hill, and the third shows the Mimic getting scooped after unlocking all 4 secret doors. And now, since Security Breach came out like 3 years ago, we all already know the story, so all I'm gonna say is it's kind of buns. And we just recently found out through Dawko's interview that Scott didn't even tell Steelwool the direct story. But now, moving on to why Ruin is better than Security Breach. Starting off with the atmosphere in Ruin. In my opinion, it's a major step up from the base game. While Security Breach had a lively and colorful environment, it lacked the horror and fear that fans usually expect from the series. Ruin successfully addresses this by shifting the tone to something darker and more unsettling. The decayed and abandoned version of the Pizzaplex is full of eerie vibes, immersing players in a truly creepy setting. The lighting, sound design, and overall aesthetic create an oppressive atmosphere that heightens the tension and somewhat brings back the classic Five Nights at Freddy's horror feel, which was missing in the base game. Additionally, Ruin improves upon the horror gameplay mechanics. In the original Security Breach, I think we can all agree that the animatronics weren't scary whatsoever and could even get annoying at times. And some of this was due to inconsistent AI and frequent bugs. In Ruin, the encounters with the animatronics are much more tense and impactful, And I don't really know what else to say for this part, except for Ruin is a huge step up in this section. This return to genuine horror gameplay is a welcome back for fans who felt that Security Breach didn't deliver the fear factor that the series is known for. The storytelling in Ruin is also a massive improvement, as Scott didn't even tell Steelwool what the story was for Security Breach during development. The narrative in Security Breach was often criticized for being disjointed and unclear, with many plot points being underdeveloped. Ruin rectifies this by presenting a more focused and engaging story. The plot of Ruin is more coherent, tying together key elements of the Five Nights at Freddy's lore in a way that feels satisfying.
Kinda, not really, but you know, you guys get my point.
The new protagonist, Cassie, brings a fresh perspective, and her emotional journey through the Pizzaplex add depth to the story that was missing in the base game. But since I mentioned Cassie's emotional journey, I'd like to bring up Roxy's quote-unquote death scene. Roxy's death in Ruin stands out as probably one of the most emotionally charged and impactful moments in the franchise. After spending so much time as just a relentless antagonist, her final scene shifts the tone dramatically, humanizing her in a way that fans did not expect whatsoever. The way she shows vulnerability and pain rather than aggression adds a layer of depth to the character, making her demise not just a moment of triumph for the player, but a somber and tragic event. The haunting music, the darkened atmosphere, and the desperation in her actions all combine to create a powerful scene that lingers with the player long after it's over, leaving a complex mix of emotions that make it completely unforgettable. But anyways, on to the next reason. Ruin manages to fix many of the technical issues and bugs that plagued Security Breach. The base game was infamous for its bugs and glitches during release, which often disrupted the gameplay and took players out of the immersive experience. In contrast, Ruin is far more polished, with smoother mechanics, fewer crashes, and improved performance overall. This allowed the players to fully enjoy the atmosphere and story without being interrupted by really annoying technical problems, which had been a major downside in Security Breach's release. Now, I'd like to go into some specific secrets and mechanics that I love way more than anything we got in Security Breach. Starting off with the Vany Mask. I love the whole two different worlds type mechanic and how you can only see different types of collectibles by having the mask on or off. Now, the second secret isn't much, but I still think it's really cool, and it's the blob showing up for a split second after walking down the first set of stairs. The third is the scooper ending, which I think is a really cool way to do a secret ending, where you have to find and unlock all 4 secret doors in the cameras throughout the entire game, which then activates said scooping ending. And the fourth, which is also really cool, is disabling all the wet floor bots throughout the entire game and opening a secret room in Bonnie Bowl, which leads to ruined Glamrock Bonnie and 4 wet floor bots surrounding him with glowing eyes. Finally, Ruin succeeds in delivering a satisfying conclusion to many of the mysteries left unresolved in Security Breach. Fans of the series were left with countless questions after playing the game, and Ruin provides very few of those answers, but still some of them. The lore is expanded upon in meaningful ways, and the DLC offers new insights into the characters and history of the Pizzaplex. By tying up loose ends and giving players a more complete understanding of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, Ruin offers a richer, more fulfilling narrative experience than its predecessor. In conclusion, Security Breach Ruin surpasses the original Security Breach in nearly every aspect, in my opinion. From its improved atmosphere to its enhanced horror mechanics and more coherent storytelling, Ruin defines and elevates the core experience. While Security Breach laid the groundwork with its ambitious open world design, Ruin takes that foundation and builds something much more cohesive and enjoyable, making it the superior entry in this chapter of the Five Nights at Freddy's series.